afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that. So this is group 2, and we would be presenting chapter 5, Understanding Others. My group consists of Jody Marie Williams
Hey.
and Rihanna Hackett
Hi.
and myself, Liliana Marshall. So let's go straight into it. So in this chapter, we would journey to understand the intricacies of gender, ethnicity, and culture, recognizing them as pivotal elements in cultivating inclusive and empowering leadership. Moreover, this chapter navigates through various leadership processes such as communication, conflict resolution, and decision making, shedding light on how they are influenced by diverse approaches. By understanding the impact of these differences, we pave the way for more effective and inclusive leadership practices. We'll also unravel the complexities that shape our interaction and leadership approaches. We'll also explore essential communication skills like empathy, assertiveness, and these skills are not only vital for fostering understanding, but also for collaborating effectively with others in leadership roles, which we all want to have. So join us as we delve into the dynamic intersection of diversity and leadership, aiming to cultivate environments where every voice is heard, valued, and empowered. Individuality and commonality. In any group setting, we may notice people who initially seem different but share commonalities upon closer observation. These can be visible traits like gender or ethnicity, or shared experiences, beliefs, or goals. Finding such similarities fosters a sense of social identity and leads to identification of sub-communities within groups. So for example, when we all joined this class, in our very first class, so allowed us to introduce ourselves. Initially, we may have felt as though we would not have had anything in common with each other. But when we did, upon people introducing themselves, we realized that we all had something common, whether it be the course that we were doing, we would have shared hobbies that each other do, and at the end of it all, we have one goal, which is to finish our degree and course that we are pursuing. So at this deeper level, despite apparent differences, there is a common desire for learning, shared goals, or a collective purpose that binds individuals together. Leadership faces the challenge of uniting individuals with diverse backgrounds towards a common purpose or vision, creating a sense of community. So initially, as I would have just highlighted, we may have thought that we don't have anything in common, but upon, still making us introduce ourselves, we was able to realize, well, yes, we have things shared in common. So Kathy Reagan, former student, government president at Rowan University, emphasizes the value of diverse perspectives in communication, problem solving, and leadership, recognizing that everyone's experience offers unique insights. So despite us sharing common goals, courses, and so forth, we all have different experiences and unique insights that makes us unique. Also, language, such as the emphasis of the individual in Western culture, shapes our perspective of oneself and others. To truly build a sense of community, individuals need to transcend the focus on oneself and embrace connections with others. Bubba's concept of I thou and the notion of I you we underscore the importance of shifting focus from the individual to meaningful engagement with others as equals to foster genuine community. Groups are inherently diverse even if members share certain characteristics. Pluralistic leaderships recognizes and appreciates this diversity, facilitating collaboration across borders to achieve shared goals. Understanding, appreciating, and effectively communicating across diverse perspectives are essential skills for pluralistic leadership. So, the challenges that someone may face in Commonality is that understanding oneself to adjust behaviors and attitudes for better connections with others and putting in effort to understand others to form meaningful communities and effective groups. So as we see, sometimes it's hard for us to, go out there and, find things that we have in common, especially with social media and so forth. There, a lot of persons' communication and style of communication has long gone out the window. So we'd want to try to be understanding, appreciative, and effective in our communication across, even with diverse people, because it's inherently hard. So I will now pass you over to Jody, and she would be, oh, I went backwards here. I'll now pass you over to Jody, and she will be discussing gender diversity.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Liliana, if you don't mind muting, thanks so much. Thanks, Liliana, for kind of showing us how we're more alike than we are different. I'm Jody Marie, guys, and I am going to be speaking about gender diversity, but also cultural diversity, cultural heritage, international diversity, and building multiculturalism. So you'll be with me for a little while. But yeah, let's jump in basically to the interesting world of gender diversity. And we're going to really look at how gender influences our attitudes, behaviors, and societal norms. So as we push forward, let's look between sex roles and gender roles. We could move forward to the next slide. So sex roles really stem from biology, such as pregnancy or muscle mass. Move forward one side and we're going to jump back to this. I'll let you know. While gender roles are really socially constructed expectations labeled as masculine and feminine. So it's important to recognize that these roles, guys, can be very limiting and inaccurate when assigned to individuals. Just jump back one slide, Liliana. So historically, guys, and I know that some of us could probably identify with this, but men's involvement in nurturing children has been limited because it's perceived as a feminine role. Back in the day, in the 50s and so on, men, weren't really like in the delivery room. They were, the mother maybe and the sister might have been in there with them, or in the bedroom where the child is being born. And they would be outside pacing, waiting to see what happens. Um, and essentially, women may face barriers in engaging in sports like football due to societal perceptions of masculinity. So these stereotypes can lead to discrimination against those who don't conform to traditional gender norms. If we take a look at the slide here, some typical gender stereotypes, could be that women are meant to be dependent and submissive and passive and talkative, while men, or masculine attributes, to gender, are meant to be like aggressive, and they're independent and they don't really talk too much and they're tough. So from early childhood, we can move forward two slides. From early childhood, our perceptions of gender are shaped by various socialization agents, including our peers, the toys that we play with, and media, Baby Shark and all these types of things, from childhood, where our perceptions are being shaped. So boys are often encouraged to be tough and competitive, while girls are taught to be caring and supportive. And these influences play a significant role in how they grow up and how we've grown up, shaping our worldview and behaviors. I'm not sure how many of you, by a show of hands, have, kids, and do you think your male son, or your son, would you allow him, if he's playing dress up and role play, to become the princess, and he wants to be the princess character, for this play that they're doing, like, would you allow that? Would you challenge, that social construct of what men are supposed to do, what women are supposed to do? So we can move forward. So how do women, when we look at attributional patterns, like let's ask ourselves, how men and women attribute success and failure. So research suggests that women often credit external factors for success, such as help from others and their personal luck and so on. So they attribute those types of things, those external factors, to their success, right? And internal factors for failures, like their inability or their weakness, not being able to pick up something. While men tend to attribute success to internal capabilities, like their own skill, right, and the hard work that they put in. So these attributional differences reflect societal norms and expectations, and could also impact people's trajectory in life and their self-esteem. So let's move forward to the next slide and explore, the representation of gender in media and a term called intersectionality, which basically, and I think you have to move forward a slide. Intersectionality, it basically acknowledges that individuals experience multiple forms of discrimination based on their intersecting identities, such as their race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality. So essentially, based on your body size, if it is you're too thin or you're too curvy, or your mental health, or your religion and so on. These are all different ways, where people have experienced discrimination, in some way. And yeah, the crisscrossing and so on, essentially, it kind of it's where something with power, yeah, power and discrimination, it kind of like collides. If we move forward, when we think about the representation, one more slide, in media, we have seen, it's probably going to be lower down, my apologies, but with the GQ cover, there we go, sorry. Yeah, let's just take a look at, how, these two covers, like read to us. These are two people, let's say in the prime of your career, you're going to be on GQ magazine, you ought to be saying things, right, in your career. But we have, the female actress, who is basically nude, and being objectified, like as a sex symbol, even though, she's, probably one of the best actresses, of her time, or and of her generation. And then we have, Tiny, who is, in a nice kit out tux, classy suit. Why couldn't it be the opposite? Why couldn't he be, dripping with sweat? So oftentimes also women have fewer speaking roles, in films and in TV shows and such, and they're probably being paid less than their male counterparts. So if you go back to the intimacy side, let's move on to embracing intimacy and independence. And these are essential aspects of gender diversity, because while some individuals might value intimacy and prioritize social connections and such, others may prioritize independence and autonomy, being able to do what you want when you want to do it and such. So understanding and respecting these differences can contribute to creating inclusive environments where individuals can express themselves authentically. And this brings me to the changing workforce, and how remote working is now a thing. And now I'm kind of wondering if employers are going to be offering this as some sort of benefit, because who knows if that employee might thrive better working from home. So sometimes leaders need to be able to kind of shake it up a little bit, and look at who the person is, and how they thrive, and it might actually work out best for everyone. So essentially, as we wrap up gender diversity, I'm hoping that we have like a better understanding of our perceptions on certain behaviors, and we can create a better environment in the future that's more inclusive and representative as we challenge those stereotypes and promote equality for all genders, even starting from babies, from childhood. So as we move on now to cultural diversity, I believe is up next, right? We're going to be basically exploring the different facets of culture and how they shape our perception and interactions, with people, with people that we interact and such. So as we move on, let's start by defining culture, right? So culture, it basically encompasses everything about how a group of people think, feel, and behave. It includes their values, their beliefs, their language, the communication styles, and much more. So culture is very dynamic and it evolves over time in response to various influences. And if it's just we just, play this video here, and just take this in. Boss, I'm not coming to work today. I can't see. No, nothing wrong with my eyes. I just can't see myself coming to work today. Thank you. In other words, I'm not doing one raw school today. Yes. So that that song, Problem Child, I'm sure a lot of you guys love it, show of hands. And it basically represents part of a part of our culture. I'm not saying that everyone, in Trinidad and Tobago, like acts like this and thinks like this, but the mass community or the carnival community and a lot of Trinidadians who are limers and so on, this is a part of our culture, and people who maybe coming to work with us here, or they in a way kind of have to, you should understand, so you come in to work with somebody around carnival time. This person is a big mass player. To me, I find an effective leader come into Trinidad, he would know to kind of, all right, well, from carnival Friday to Ash Wednesday, I know response is gonna be a little ting, you know that that's holiday time basically. No, so effective leaders, they recognize the importance of multiculturalism in fostering inclusiveness, collaboration, and shared goals. So to cultivate a greater sense of multiculturalism, we first must become aware of our own culturally informed assumptions. So as we move forward, let's take a look at what race and ethnicity and essentially, sometimes people, we mix this up, but race is supposed to essentially represent specific physical traits, that these members of the race must have, right? So usually it might be something like the color of your skin and the shape of your face. There's a uh but the ethnicity is is like more the nationality and the cultural traditions, of that group, right? So essentially, the concept of race has been used to marginalize certain groups and perpetuate inequalities. And as we move forward, I'm sure this is a term that you guys have like heard before, right? As we move forward to the next slide, that term of white privilege. Now, Peggy McIntosh, she introduced the concept of white privilege as describing the unseen advantages that come with being a part of a dominant culture, right? So the word white is attached to it, but essentially it's about the extra privileges that you are granted in life, the extra resources that may not be available to other people. So it's crucial for us to acknowledge and address these privileges to promote equality and inclusion, because I want us to think about something, like we might think that this might more refer to just the black and the white race, but let's take for instance, us Trinidadians, I definitely think that we can be considered to wear an invisible knapsack. And I'm not sure if anybody agrees, show of hands, but if you compare, somewhere like the Gaza and Israel, places that are under so much, social unrest right now, I'm sure that there are invisible privileges that we have, like like our free education and free healthcare and all the other things that makes it great to be a trainee, and yeah, it's important for us to kind of recognize that, to not just think that, oh, okay, because I'm not white, that knapsack doesn't, relate to me, because it could, and as we move forward, we can, take a look at, I think there's a little cartoon coming up here, where, yeah, the white and the black, white man and the black woman, they're running the same race, and the white man is kind of asking her like, why are you watching me, so like what's the matter, like aren't we going the same distance, but he has fewer as a male, as as a white person and such, he has fewer obstacles that he would have to go through, and her being a female, and probably of some sort of brown skin, I'm not sure if it's black or Hispanic or what, it's probably gonna take her a lot longer to get to that finish line, or to the same place. So yeah, so let's think about that invisible knapsack, that helps you travel through life more easily. Do you wear one? So as we move forward to the relationship leadership model, right? So what that does, the relationship leadership model, it basically emphasizes inclusion and empowerment, and recognizes that all the participants contribute to the group's success, right? And by valuing diverse perspectives and experiences, we can create environments where everyone feels like they're being heard and respected, right? And that image behind is, supposed to essentially race that they're supposed to be multicultural, well, they're not, I mean, guess they're not talking over each other, but everyone is feeling heard. So yeah, so that's the relationship leadership model, so maybe when we're in groups, we can try to adopt that, where everyone feels included and empowered to put their 2 cents in, right? So as we move forward, as leaders, we must challenge assumptions and privileges associated with characteristics like gender, race, and socioeconomic status. Privilege can inadvertently perpetuate oppression, even when unintended, so, that's the thing, even, by us saying, not recognizing that we are wearing that invisible knapsack and saying something that might just be just regular for us, but because of what their country is going through, or their countrymen even, their people, just saying that might make yourself look just ungrateful and just ignorant a bit of other people, like empathy and such. So by critically examining these privileges, we can create more equitable and inclusive spaces, right? So now what we can do is, actually, like, I have this little tweet here, and it just reminded me of a situation when I was in New York for the summer years ago, and my cousin, she was doing some summer classes to get her degree, and I went to class one morning with her, and I walked into the class, and I was just like, morning, morning, like I said, morning, and everyone just kind of watched up at me, like what is she doing, like what, like, but yeah, it just kind of made me think of that. So anyway, let's move forward to cultural heritage, right? So oh, international diversity, my bad, I'm sorry, that's up next. So essentially, to work effectively with individuals from different countries, it's essential in this connected world that we have, right? So the importance of cross-cultural understanding. When working with people from other countries, it can present both opportunities and challenges. And as college students, especially when you're studying abroad, you get to go away to school, which I never got to do and has always been a dream. But even here in Costa, like I've bounced up people, from there's somebody from a country in Africa, and even someone, I know that it's the same country, but we can people, who live in Tobago, I get to see, our differences. We just because it's like Trinidad and Tobago, I don't want to assume that they do things like Trinidadians do, like their infrastructure and lots of things are different, so it's important to kind of know your own culture and know that we do have like our quirks and such from, being Trinis and Tobagonians. I know you all know that. But essentially, as college students, we have this, chance to engage with peers, from diverse cultural backgrounds. And when you study abroad, and to succeed in global environments, it's really important for us to develop cultural awareness and sensitivity. So as we move forward, global leaders possess key traits such as adaptability, cultural empathy, and emotional intelligence, and they demonstrate an outlook of cultural relativity and excelled in building relationships across cultural boundaries. Even if it's just, keeping, like keeping in touch. Sorry, it just like slipped my mind. Like keeping in touch, like with people, like yes, you might have, done some sort of course or some sort of something, but if you keep in touch with someone and you're able to kind of, continue to have relationships of cross cultural boundaries, those things do help, leaders. You might find out about oh well, some religious practice that is now starting up for a certain majority group, and you never know, that information could come and help you down the line. No. So yeah, developing these qualities, guys, it's really important for effective leadership in diverse settings. Yeah. We're a diverse place and we're always meeting new people down here, and you never know where you're gonna end up. So it's good to have these kind of qualities. So Project Globe is this comprehensive international study that identified 9 dimensions of culture that vary across countries, and we could move forward to see those dimensions. So these dimensions include assertiveness, future orientation, gender differentiation, and a lot more, as you could see on the screen. So understanding these cultural differences can enhance cross-cultural communication and collaboration, which is dope because a lot of the times too, you might see embassies and such, there being opportunities for these kind of cross-cultural initiatives. And yeah, it's really good and a good opportunity to keep an eye out for those types of things. So, we might be able to build on these skills of just being culturally aware and hopefully, building relationships that last and so on. So as the world becomes more interconnected, knowledge about other countries become increasingly important and easier to get, like with people posting so much to YouTube and such these days. It's really, easier now to kind of even see inside like how certain very rural villages, remote villages and such, how they do things, right? So, however, studies show that many US students, because, this study here, this book, the leadership book is very Western based. So we will be, seeing some like a lot of Western examples and so on. But we can connect it, globally. But many US students, and I'm sure a lot of us, we lack essential cultural awareness, so by educating ourselves about different cultures, even if it's through watching watching videos, we can foster greater understanding and bridge cultural gaps. Yeah, as we work towards being one big happy family. So as we move forward, it's essential to address misconceptions and misinformation about other countries. And international students often express frustration with the ignorance of their American peers. So by seeking to understand and appreciate diverse perspectives, we can create more inclusive and respectful environments. And this kind of brings me to, and it's probably going to come back up again, but it reminds me of my cousin when she went to China some years ago, was really shocked by their practices, the things that they eat and certain things that they do, like going to the bathroom in the street. And but we have to learn to be multicultural, sorry. We do have to appreciate diverse perspectives. So if we want to remain respectful, especially in the people place, you can't go to people place and be turning up your nose. So yeah, so guys, I encourage you to reflect on our own cultural biases and consider how you could enhance environments where cross-cultural competency is high. Yeah, so now as we move on to what's up next, cultural heritage, right? So okay, so cultural heritage, we're going to jump into its significance of understanding your own culture. Like, we need to understand our own culture while also embracing diversity. So yeah, I'm not sure if it is we, could consider our own upbringing and how, we think those beliefs have influenced our identity and perspectives. I just read in my English lit class this short, I think it was a short story called Girl by Jamaican. It's supposed to be pretty notable. And it's kind of like the mother talking to the daughter, you know, telling her how to be and giving her advice. And it somewhat has some harsh language where she's saying kind of like the slut that you're gonna grow up to be, and so on. But there's talking about washing between your leg, and don't even down to like how to cook potatoes and all kind of stuff. But yeah, the different things that we stories that we've heard growing up, and traditions and all of these things, these things influence like our identity, who we are, our heritage. So um it, it's important as we move forward. It's also important for us to understand the diverse amount of groups that we have, in the world. Again, this book is very Western, but we have the white. We can move forward a slide. We have the white and European American cultures. We have African American, Black cultures, Asian cultures, Latino and Hispanic cultures. And it's really important, for us to understand the different perspectives and experiences of these other cultures. And outside of these cultures, guys, like, I need us to be aware, that we also have other cultures, like the aging culture, like the adult, um, you know, senior citizen, in a way, like the aging community. We have that culture. We also have different religious cultures, the deaf culture. Um, I you did a quick kind of like a feeling shame story. My cousin's partner is deaf, and I've known this for years, and we interact and so on. And a time, like, we were in a conversation in WhatsApp, and I sent a voice note. And yeah, and she just had to kind of like remind me that she can't hear. And you don't want to like be dotish like me, like, and just be in these kind of situations where I mean, I know that she would have taken it like, but it might make it for someone else, it might be insensitive, so and frustrating, for them. So we have to think about these different cultures, and the experiences that they probably also go through, and they're probably also marginalized. So yeah, I just wonder, what your biases that you may hold for different, cultural groups. And it's, really important for us to be aware of our assumptions. And, that like, who knows that they like making assumptions like a deaf, a deaf person would want a hearing aid. They would want to participate in this trial to help them hear. We can't assume that. What if like they're proud to be a part of their special culture. So we have to like be aware of the assumptions that we make, so that we can foster empathy, and understanding towards people, so that we can build these collaborative and respectful relationships. So let's move on to the next slide. And yeah, essentially we can move on from here, but this is just the different types of heritage that we have the intangible, and yeah, and the tangible. You could move on. Yeah, one more time. And okay, so as we wrap up, into building multicultural appreciation, we'll take a look at what it is to understand and embrace cultural diversity, which is essential for effective leadership and participation in diverse environments. And let's talk about the significance as we move on of multiculturalism. And as outlined by Paul Penderson and David Hoops, it's basically developing an openness and appreciation for various cultures, which is crucial. So, what we'll do is we'll explore the intercultural learning process model, right, which highlights different stages an individual goes through in their cultural awareness journey, right? So, as we move on, the first stage in the journey is ethnocentric. I always get this mixed up. Please forgive me, guys. Eth- Ethnocentrism, where individuals believe their own culture is superior to others, right? And I mean, when I think of this word ethnocentrism, like I think of Trump, right? They believe that their own culture is superior to others, and this mindset can lead to intolerance and hostility, and that, yeah. So, however, as individuals gain awareness of different cultures, they transition to a stage of acknowledgement and understanding. And this also, like bringing back to you guys to like when I mentioned my cousin who went to China, when she, saw, I think it was like a little toddler, it seemed normal, that he pulled down his diaper and used the bathroom in the in the road. Yeah, like I'm sure she was probably thinking, oh, well, yeah, in America they wouldn't do this. This is like, what kind of nasty place, like I come to, and you start to like judge, right? But yeah, it's really important for us to gain awareness of different cultures, as we move towards, transitioning into acknowledgement and understanding, right? Because we don't know if it is the baby just really had to go, or if this is something that they do because of their infrastructure. So as we move forward, in the acknowledgement and understanding stage, individuals begin to recognize the existence of other cultures and understand that differences are culturally based, right? So they acquire knowledge about different cultures on a rational level and piecing together the puzzle of cultural diversity. So yeah, who knows if it is she would have, looked up uh um a video on it, or in the hotel that she's staying in, like on the bathroom door gives like a little information on it or whatever, but you gain understanding of, okay, this is this culture and this is what they do. And you start to kind of piece together, like the cultural diversity, right? So as we go on to acceptance and respect, as individuals progress now, they reach that level of acceptance and respect, and they acknowledge the validity of other cultures without comparing them to their own, which is important, so they begin to see that this culture and the way that they do things, like, okay, like, to each its own, like, and this shift in attitude fosters a live and let live approach where they value other cultures, and it's recognized and respected. So then moving forward now to appreciating and valuing, right, individuals into a stage of valuing and appreciating aspects of other people's cultures. So they understand that each culture has its strengths and weaknesses, and it leads to an appreciation of those cultural aspects. So this transition involves moving from being objective to being subjective regarding those cultural aspects, in terms of their own identity and values. So I guess now, you can kind of like look at yourself and reflect and so on. Whereas in the acceptance and respect stage, like, it's, you don't compare it, but it seems like in the appreciating and valuing stage, you do kind of reflect and compare it. But as we move forward now to the selective adoption, individuals start to try and adopt new attitudes and behavior from other cultures that they believe are useful and desirable to emulate. So this process allows for personal growth and the integration of valuable aspects from different cultural perspectives. And this reminds me a lot of the adoption of Buddhist practices with meditation and so on. And, a lot of people, who knows, like, lots of other aspects of the culture maybe they don't do, but certain things, they think, I'll selectively adopt this piece because it's going to be useful, to me, right? So this is all on an ultimate goal, guys, of really going towards being multicultural, and the journey of multiculturalism. And it's an ongoing process, and where individuals feel comfortable communicating effectively with people from many cultures and situations. And in this ideal state of being, identities, self concepts, outlooks, and value formation, they really transcend cultural considerations, and individuals are very open to trying new experiences. And lastly, with application and reflection, um, yeah, I just want you guys to, think about how it is we can, bridge gaps between different groups, to help foster like better understanding, and collaboration. So as we, like, promote being multicultural, because we quick to say that we're diverse and so on, but yes, we're diverse, but, like, we all eating a beef roti, we all eating, but, for us to really be diverse and multicultural, we have to know about other cultures outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and be able to um, promote those types of inclusive environments. Yeah. So now I believe, I'm going to, pass you over to Rihanna, as she gets into our attitudes towards differences.
It's me again,
Liliana.
Liliana, actually.
Sorry, Liliana.
It's all right. So we jumping into attitudes and attitude towards differences. Oh, hold on. Right. All right. So how is attitudes towards differences developed? So before we even jump in, so what is being said on the screen, many of us while growing up, or even in the picture itself, the little with all, the different colored hands holding this heart. Many children, when they are growing up without the influences of their parents at that time, views everyone as, someone. They don't view anyone differently. They don't realize that their color skin is different. They might notice it by obviously watching it because they, relation to colors and so forth. But they do not know, well, this person is a black, this person is a white, I don't like this person, I don't want to be friends with this person. No, they're not like that. They are very much, growing in that, such as, like, how to put it, what the word slipped my mind, but they have like no sense of bias towards anyone. So it goes to show that at times parents influences and the situations that we grew up in influences the way that we may view people. So many times, if it is a parent isn't good with a particular person, one as a child, when we grow up eventually, we will side with our parents and so forth. So understanding and accepting differences is a complex process that evolves over time. As we grow from childhood to adulthood, our experiences shape our perceptions of others. Some may develop bias and fear towards differences, leading to harmful attitudes like racism, homophobia, while others embrace and appreciate diversity. So going back to this child, before this child even experience anything, they have no bias, they have no fear towards persons, they love everyone. But as we grow up and we go into that teenage cycle, even before that, things that happen would affect our way of viewing persons and differences. So many of us as adults, I don't know about you all, but with me, sometimes change comes hard. Sometimes we find it hard to, adapt to change, adapt to things that we're not sure about. And the same thing happens. And this is where harmful attitudes start. So Josephine Titsworth, in her role as co-chair of Houston Transgender Unity Community, highlights the importance of diversity and inclusion in society. She emphasizes the value lost when discrimination occurs and showcases successful efforts to promote inclusivity, such as the Houston Transgender Unity Banquet. So many times when our harmful attitudes steps in, like our bias, our fear, and so forth, the value is lost of what the true sense of what it is we would like to portray is lost. Discrimination occurs, but we see that this is not what it is we would want to promote, but we would want to promote inclusivity. We would want to be able to be adaptable. So now we're going to look at negative levels of attitudes. This includes repulsion, pity, tolerance, and acceptance. So repulsion. Repulsion is someone who view people who are different as strange, sick, crazy, and adversive. Views anything that will change them to be more normal or a part of the mainstream as justifiable. So imagine I am now meeting you all, or let me say I'm now meeting Rihanna. And my view with this repulsion is to view Rihanna, who may be different from me, as strange, sick, and crazy. Shouldn't I be the one classified as sick and crazy for just having an outlook person from just viewing Rihanna to just view her strange, sick, and crazy? So we all know the saying, don't judge the book by its cover. So pity. Pity views people who are different as somehow born that way and feels that that is pitiful. Sees being different as definitely immature and less preferred. So to help those poor individuals, one should reinforce normal behavior. So you never want to be pitiful of someone. We want to have more of that empathy and sympathy. Tolerance sees being different as just a phase of development and that most people grow out of it. Thus, one should protect and tolerate those who are different as one does a child who is still learning. Now, this is so true. When a child is growing and, let's say they reach into the terrible twos, I don't know if we have parents in the class, but when the child reach their terrible twos, this is the worst part, the up and down, the energy is there, they're not listening. we always say, you know what, they will grow out of it, they will grow out of it. And, you know, we discipline them, so to speak. So this same attitude that we have, we wouldn't want to say, well, as a grown person, they will grow out of it. We don't just want to have, excuse me, sorry. We don't just want to have tolerance for people, but we want to understand persons and understand what they're going through. Because sometimes, many times when, you know, we may be going somewhere, or I don't know if you guys could relate, but you may be having a bad day. And this one thing that someone says is just like the straw that break the camel back. You know, we over it. We sad because it just, you know, so sometimes we would always want to keep in mind, we'd always want to tell ourselves, I don't know what that person is going through. I shouldn't be me. So acceptance implies that one needs to make accommodations for another's differences, does not acknowledge that that the other's identity may be the same value as one's own. So this acceptance means that this person, you know, views themselves at a higher standard. As the latter part says, it says that does not acknowledge that the other's identity may be the same as one's own. So I may not realize that, you know, me and Rihanna on the same wavelength, you understand? But because my persona is feeling as though I'm more elevated than her, I would miss that whole field. So these are the positive level of attitudes that we would want to strive to have, especially as, you know, we are the newer generation. I know this class may be mixed with different ages, but we are the ones to carry on now. So support, admiration, appreciation, and nurturance. So support works to safeguard the right of those who are different. One may be uncomfortable with oneself, but one is aware of the climate and the irrational unfairness in our society. So we know how unfair this world could be. We all have our times, you know, where the world is unfair to us. So just as how we would want someone to support us, even though they may not know us fully, or our colleague or our classmate, we would want them to support us in that way, you know, having our back. Admiration acknowledges that being different in our society takes strength. One is willing to truly look at oneself and work on one's own bias. As the old people, they say, monkey can see their own tail. So in this admiration quality, we would want to look at ourselves before we look and judge others. You know, we would want to admire persons, even if it's a small thing, like someone saying good morning when it says they come in the class, or good evening when it says they come in the class, because many persons are growing out of, you know, the normal respect, the normal norms that we were growing up with. Even if we passing someone on the sidewalk, we would say, you know, good morning. These are the things that not going on now. So even the simplest things, we'd want to try to find admiration in persons. Appreciation values the diversity of people and is willing to confront insensitive attitudes. So we would want to appreciate the diversity that we have in this country. As we know, Trinidad and Tobago is a Callaloo nation. As we say, we have a mixture of Chinese, Spanish, all sorts, blacks, whites, everything. We have a mixture of everything. Nurturance assumes the differences in people are indispensable in society, views differences with genuine affection and delight, and is willing to be an advocate for those differences. So in the world that we live in now, especially on the workplace, we could bend our back backwards and forward. We know that we are irreplaceable. Hear me. We know that we are replaceable, sorry. Because no matter how hard you work, at the end of the day, if something happens to you, they get somebody just as quick to fill the position. But in this, the way that we want to view others is indispensable. I know Jody has something to offer. I know Rihanna has something to offer. You know, I wouldn't want to view them as just, okay, well, you know what, they're dispensable. I don't need them. No, we all need each other. It's all a food chain of growth in a sense. So we'll now move on to cultural influences on leadership behavior. So how groups are made. Understanding how diversity factors like gender, race, ethnicity, age, sexual orientation, religion, ability, and socio-economic status influence both our behavior and the behavior of others within groups is crucial for effective relational leadership. No group is entirely homogeneous. We all possess unique personalities, traits, attitudes, styles, values, beliefs, and opinions shaped by our cultural background. So it would be oversimplifying to characterize individuals solely based on one aspect of their identity. Behaviors are influenced by a myriad of background factors, making it more productive to observe and understand attitudes rather than relying on stereotypes. So remember what I said, don't judge a book by its cover. We will not just stereotype someone by just their outward persona. Examining cultural influences in leadership possesses such a communication such a communication, conflict resolution, and decision making as essential. So getting to know each other, we want to have that communication, because I wouldn't know how Jody operates if it is I don't speak to Jody, or I just feel Jody is let's say, a stuck-up person, you understand? But getting to talk to Jody, so forth, I get to see how sweet Jody is, and that happens in the workplace. Sometimes, as I don't know. Okay, no, I can't say that. But sometimes persons, they may have a face like, don't talk to me. And that has happened many times, I bet, especially the ladies. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but, when it is somebody gets to know you, they're like, oh my God, you are so sweet. And then they would say initially, when I now saw you, I thought you were mean or something because your face always serious. And that happens. So you wouldn't want to stereotype persons. Moving on now, relational leadership emphasizes effective leadership practices within diverse groups. While many leadership approaches prioritize participative decision making, to empower followers, relational and pluralistic leadership goes further by seeking to transform the organizational culture to recognize diversity as a valuable asset. So we would want to have these skills, or we would want to have these leadership skills like relational and pluralistic leadership. Why? Because that means that we are seeking to, recognize that diversity is a valuable asset. So in the image, on the lower half, we see everyone is paired off. We have the orange, we have the blue, we have the green. Yes, they might function in their group well, but when everyone is put together, we realize how is a valuable asset. Everyone is working together. Everyone shares different, the thoughts slipped my mind. But as you know, as they say, two is better than one. So the ideas flowing, decision making may be easier. Designating certain roles would be easier because it's a diverse group and we have unique ways and unique ideas. So now I will pass you over to Rihanna, and she would be discussing communication.
Good afternoon, everyone. So now we're going to discuss a little bit about communication. First, we must understand what is communication. Next slide. Communication can be defined as the act of giving, receiving, and sharing information. This can include writing, listening, or reading. Good communicators listen carefully, speak or write clearly, and respect different opinions. A classic example is group settings for projects. You may notice some group members may be leading group activities and tend to be more outspoken, while others not so much. They may be reserved and tend to take on tasks as assigned with little to no input. Another example is associating loud and expressive speech to be attributed to the African American, Caribbean, Latino, and Arab cultures, while some American, Indian, Asian, and Latin American indigenous cultures favor softer tones and less expressive speech. By show of hands, has anyone ever watched Rush Hour? That's the show with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. But yeah, we have a few people who have watched it, yes. In this movie, Chris Tucker had a more louder persona, whereas Jackie Chan was more reserved in speaking. There was a clear indication of who was the more vocally expressive person in that duo. It is important to understand that nonverbal communication and verbal communication can be influenced by the same factors such as values, perspectives, norms, and cultural heritage. Now we can move on to the other slide, which looks at conflict resolution. How many of us had to deal with conflict? Anyone mind sharing what was the conflict and how you were able to resolve it? Anyone? No one? Tough crowd. We must understand that individuals are different and may react differently to certain stimuli and situations. Some may be easygoing, responsible, hold self accountability, while others may blame external factors. You may or may not have experienced a situation at work where upper management makes a decision and expects full compliance without any query. You may have just went along with it or went along with the instruction given due to the individual's superiority. For the working class, we all have that one colleague that opposes almost everything management says. Conflict is inevitable. This is why conflict management plays a critical role in leadership. Leaders must remain focused on the purpose of change and maintain positive relationships while being ethical and inclusive. Now we forward to the next slide, where I would pass you on to Liliana again, who would be discussing decision making.
Back again to me. So we're going to talk about decision making. Right. So how does decision making occur? Decisions are made, well, the way that decisions are made are very differently in different groups. So decisions are made in groups depend on whether they prefer majority rule or including minority options. Sometimes, if a group can't agree, they might delay deciding. Some think leaders should decide, while others believe experts or those involved should decide. So does anyone want to share how it is they think decision making should go about, whether it be that, the group leader should make the decision or if everyone should make a decision? No one? Okay. Well, I know when Sir put us in groups, obviously, we would have had that chance to, communicate with our group members. And for example, in our group, we didn't have a group leader. We all, were chipping in our opinions and how we think things should run. And, we would decide on the majority rule as it is saying here. So relational leadership needs good communication, which is what we must have in decision making. Because if it is your left hand don't know what your right hand doing, nothing would move forward. You understand? So it's about understanding others, not just convincing them, but we would want to communicate with them, reason with them. It's not just what I say goes or what it is my other group member says goes. And many persons decision making is something simple until they are put into a position to, trying to lead and trying to make decisions. You realize that is okay, it's a little tougher than how it is somebody else would have been carrying the load. So communicators should always think about how their views affect their understanding and how they can understand others better. So we would want to ask ourselves, some self-reflecting questions. How is my decision making? Am I willing to be open-minded and understand what others are saying? Am I willing to take correction? Because at times, I don't know if you guys would have gone through this within your group, but you know, when it is you're going through certain things and they might tell you, yeah, well, you know, I feel like this should be different. Are you willing to take that correction, or are you headstrong and like, no, I feel that should stay that way? So all these different aspects, are involved in this big decision making. And it wouldn't just, as the notion before when I was doing individuality and commonality, it's just not I in the group, but it's you, we, us. We are a team, as the little gif is saying there. So I'll now pass you back over to Rihanna, and she would be covering leadership and communication.
Right, so we are covering leadership and communication. First, we must understand that communication is not just only based on how well articulated and outspoken an individual is, it also involves the ability to actually listen. One must listen with empathy and emotional participation in another person's experience. While empathy reflects on what someone might be feeling and providing a safe space for all emotions, good or bad, empathy puts more emphasis on our own idea and judgment about how the person feels and what they should do. This does minimize the person's problem, but it ignores how they feel. Now we can look at our video in the next slide, which gives us a more in-depth understanding of how empathy and sympathy can affect an individual.
Stuff goes wrong for all of us, and at some point, it's our turn again to land in the pit of despair. But it's the conversations that we have whilst we're down there and how we respond to them that will determine just how fast we get back out again. Essentially, people will have one of two responses to us when they see us in pain: sympathy or empathy. Take one, the sympathetic response. The problem with sympathy is that it's based on the three things that worsen and prolong the bad situation that the person is in: pity, victim status, and agreement. When we sympathize, we add our own sorrow, fear, annoyance, our pity to the other person's feelings. And whilst they now feel less lonely, being joined by another person confirms that the pit is real and bad. When we treat people like victims, they behave like victims. And agreement just makes the walls of the pit all the more intimidating. Sympathy always ends in the same way, with a bungled rescue attempt, which almost always fails, because deep down, we don't want to be rescued. We want to be right. Okay, everyone, take two, quiet on set, roll camera, and empathy. When we empathize with someone, we have the power to change the game. By reflecting back the feeling that we see the person having, we show them that they have been understood, deeply understood. By reflecting back their circumstances in plain words, we help them to step back and regain perspective, and importantly, the belief that they can repair their own situation for themselves. When all's said and done, sympathy can actually feel nice for a bit. But when it comes to getting to a solution, only empathy has the power to get someone up and running again. Ah, okay. Take three.
All right, guys. So while sympathy is basically putting yourself in someone else's shoes while maintaining your own preservations, empathy can be a bit tricky, as what and how we say something can influence how the receiver processes the information. Right, so now we're moving on to the next slide, which speaks about assertive communication. So for the females in the class, imagine there is a situation where yourself and a few male companions are out liming. They strike up a conversation about vehicles, right? However, you know you have some knowledge of vehicles. How likely would you partake in this conversation? Anyone? This scenario leads to the notion that most women tend to feel silenced or silence themselves as they assume their opinion isn't valid to avoid conflict. In communication, everyone reserves the right to be heard and a responsibility to listen. Each individual reserves the right to be heard, valued, and understood. Now we look at navigating the spectrum of assertiveness. We can move on to the next slide. One can be unassertive. This is failing to stand up for oneself or not effectively standing up for one's rights to the degree that it becomes easily violated. While assertive communication occurs when one stands up for his or herself in such a way that it does not violate the rights of another person by not only being direct and honest, but appropriately respecting others' feelings and opinion. And lastly, we look at aggressive communication. Aggressive communication is standing up for oneself in such a manner that it completely violates the rights of someone else and can come across as humiliating and putting others down. Now we move on after discussing these aspects of communication. How can you become better at communicating? Can someone tell me? How do you think, in your personal introspect, how do you think you can become a better communicator in your daily life? All right. So as we move on to the next slide, we are coming to our conclusion. Next slide. So in conclusion, the capability to understand others and also be understood can greatly improve the functionality of any business or organization, as leaders must truly grasp the impact of cultural heritage, gender, and other aspects of all differences, which aid in us working together to create change. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. To truly recognize the importance of differences, we can take steps as simple as filling out a personality test. That way it ain't going to take us so long to do, as we must understand ourselves before we can understand others. We can also attend leadership seminars. And lastly, we can participate in team building exercises. So guys, as we end our slide, some of the things that we discussed in our presentation, these are things you don't have to be in a leadership position to practice some of these things in your daily life. You can put it into practice every day in every action that you take. So I hope that this that we presented today would be useful to the class and we could put it into practice. In the following slides, you will see some of the references where we had some of our information, and you can go through it on your own accord whenever you feel like to get a more in-depth understanding of what it means to understand others. So on behalf of myself, Liliana, and Jody, we thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Thanks, Rihanna. And Liliana.
Thank you all very much. Do you guys have any questions that you guys would like to ask us?
No questions, but I really enjoyed the presentation because you all give like real life, kind of situations and put it into context. That kind of made it feel like, more easily, I could have better understand everything. And I really like that.
Yeah, we
Very
really try to make it more relatable to you all.
yes, so that you guys
Yeah.
would hold it in your brain. So thank you all very much, and well, we pass you back over to Sue.